Hello, everybody, and welcome to the TF1 show. Now, can I just say it's a miracle that you are actually getting two presenters that are awake after the Russian Grand Prix that we just had. It was quite a frustrating watch, I'm not going to lie, but I'm very excited to have Elliot from Elliot Talks F1 joining me today on the show. So, Elliot, if you want to, please give a bit of an intro.
Oh God, don't know. Just waffle about the races and my opinions on stuff. Nothing really. I never plan stuff really. I just sort of see where I go, and then we end there, and then I try and fix it in the edit. That's my plan for videos.
The story of our life. So Elliot's details will be in the description below, so you can go and follow him on Twitter, and his YouTube channel is also linked. So please go give Elliot some love. He has the best dry humor that you can ever find. Very much a channel that I enjoy watching quite frequently.
I'm glad.
So Elliot, what did you make of the Russian Grand Prix in totality?
3 corners of good, and then 2 hours of my life I'm never getting back. Pretty much.
It was pretty rough. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I was developing a headache at a rapid pace, trying to keep myself excited for the race. I mean, the start I thought was relatively exciting. I found the first lap to be quite interesting. A lot of things happening.
Yes.
And the penalties was making things interesting with Lewis Hamilton, and then I liked the Renaults being up there challenging Max. Ricciardo was past Max Verstappen for like a hot 3 seconds there, and and then after that, lap 2 was just it was pretty dreadful. After that, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do, like we always do on these race recaps, is we will essentially walk through each of the teams, talk about the drivers, their general performances over the whole weekend. So let's start with Mercedes and Valtteri Bottas. Now, I don't know about you, Elliot, but I thought Bottas' reaction straight after winning the race,
I didn't like it. I hated it.
Was quite cringy. He made it out to be as this massive statement of intent against all of the haters.
Yeah.
Like when people go and shout out their haters. Bottas did a shout out to his haters, but I don't know. I just found it really cringeworthy because, yes, he did well to stay ahead.
But he was gifted. He was literally gifted the whole race. He wouldn't have been ahead unless Lewis had got the penalty, really.
Yeah, I sort of agree with that. Look, he had relatively good pace throughout the race, I thought. But other than that, I mean, he was, half a second down on Hamilton in qualifying. So, that performance alone to me would not warrant a to whom it may concern reaction at the end of the race, if I'm honest.
But it's fine. He's never bothered by the qualifying deficit. It doesn't matter.
It's fine, right?
It's
because
fine.
never give up.
No points for Saturday anyway.
And I also like Bottas, saying, never give up. This is going to be the start of his championship challenge. And I'm like, Valtteri, we are 2/3 of the way through the season. You are 44 points behind Hamilton.
Yeah, something like that.
You should have started a bit earlier. You can't now say this is the comeback. The comeback begins after Hamilton gets 2 5-second penalties, out-qualified him by half a second. And Bottas is essentially, through sheer force of will, Bottas is going to overcome Hamilton and win this world championship.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard, they were talking about it on the broadcast a bit, that Valtteri went to church on the Monday after Mugello. And I was like, if you're going that far to pray to a further being for some hope, really, mate, just sack it off. Just leave it there.
And also, I would argue that today was a bit of divine intervention for Valtteri. I mean, he didn't manage to overtake Lewis in the first corner. That in itself, with the
he got hit by a bee.
Oh yes! Oh my gosh, I forgot about that. The bee, the killer bee. I mean, the excuses that Bottas comes up with during a race, is you have to give him points for creativity, because I mean the killer bee was one that I did not see coming, because we've had but Mercedes accidentally put in too much fuel, that's why he didn't get pole position. We heard the strategy blunders quite often, him making excuses with strategy. But indeed, Will from FP1, as he says here, the sky pad never lies. And
it doesn't.
I'm sure we'll see an analysis from Anthony Davidson showing how, the bee hit Valtteri Bottas's helmet and
200 miles an hour, bee twatting him in the face.
And the severe impact that had on his Grand Prix win. Thinking about it, the amount of obstacles that Bottas had to overcome in order to win this race. No wonder he was so animated afterwards, because, I mean, this will probably go down as one of the great race drives of Formula One history.
I think maybe for Valtteri, because he probably won't have many more.
That's depressing. Anyways, let's talk about Lewis Hamilton, his teammate. Now, Lewis it was going really well for Lewis up until Q2, I'd say yesterday, and then things already started to unravel a bit with the red flag and the lockup and the lap time getting deleted. And I mean, he still somehow managed to
bag pole,
get his head in some sort of way and actually bag pole position by half a second, which in itself is really, really impressive. And then this morning did a race start right at the end of the pit lane. The team told him it's okay, you can do it. Then all of a sudden gets two 5-second penalties and 2 penalty points. Now, I don't know, Elliot, if you ever saw the second race start that he did.
I think they did show both. They just look the same, what they showed.
Oh,
I think it is. I think he's in different positions, but I don't know, it's a bit odd. Because I think when you see it, you see a AlphaTauri go past, and then you see a Racing Point go past.
Oh, I see. Because I never saw the one. I never saw the other race start. I just saw the one. So when he got 2 penalties for that, I was quite surprised, and he was obviously very upset afterwards. I haven't seen him that upset actually in a long time, where he was like proper not happy with how things have been going.
I think the last one being Monaco last year, probably.
I can't even remember Monaco last year.
Where his tyres were literally like...
Oh, yes. Where he was complaining about the tyres. But I don't know. Like, I have to say, I've read quite a bit about it afterwards, and I sort of get what Mercedes is saying, because the regulations essentially says there are 2 paragraphs. The first paragraph says after the pit exit, you can do a race start if it's out of harm's way or way to the right or something along those lines. I actually don't have the wording with me now. And then immediately after that, it says, however, you can't do a practice start in the fast lane. And I'm assuming where Hamilton was constituted the fast lane, even though Mercedes told him to get out of the way or something. It was just a really weird one. And usually I'm quite sort of decisive in my opinion on whether something should be a penalty or not. But this one, I actually can't figure out what was the letter of the law.
I think maybe give him the penalty I don't even know if you could necessarily give him an on-track penalty, because it's like Toto said, that no one's ever had a pre-race reconnaissance lap penalty and then receive a in-race penalty for it.
Yeah, so Toto said he should have gotten a reprimand.
Yeah,
which is, I guess, what he feels the precedent is just a reprimand and say don't do it again. But then Hamilton got 2 in-race penalties and 2 penalty points. And even Max Verstappen came out and said in the press conference that he thought giving Hamilton the 2 penalty points as well is really hectic for something that
was ultimately very minor.
Yes, and it was open for interpretation. That I guess that's my view, at least. Like, I didn't feel like it was a slam dunk transgression if I read what the race director's note said. But at the end of the day, I guess we can go on about it as much as we can. The thing is, he got the penalty.
Yeah, got it. That's it.
And how would you rate this weekend for Lewis on balance? If you had to account for the 2 penalties, obviously not really within his control, but how do you rate his race performance?
I feel like he just sort of did what he could with. The only thing he could have hoped for was overtake Max, but where he had the penalties and had to serve them in the pits and it didn't get added on straight away, I think it's pretty much did the best he could of that situation. I mean, obviously Lewis wins so much, it's probably depressing when he doesn't, but
I think Max did a good job, I think, to keep him out of Lewis's way. I think Lewis was a bit upset that he had to pit that early. I think he wanted to go a bit longer because I think when he was sort of trying to catch up to Max a bit with about 10 laps to go, but his tires were 13 laps older than Max's. So at that point, I think he just realized that he's not going to have the offset in pace to catch up 10 seconds.
Even in the USS Enterprise Mercedes.
Exactly. So all in all, a weird, it was a weird Grand Prix for Mercedes. Like, I don't know if they were going to be happy with what happened or unhappy with the general outcome.
Some of the comments Lewis was saying after the race where he's saying they want to see me fail. And I was like...
Hectic, bold claims. I'm not going to lie. I wouldn't go that far. I don't think they're out to get him. I do think they were strict. And I think we can talk about this a bit later because I have a bee in my bonnet about another on-track
on your visor.
Not on my visor, luckily.
Yeah.
But the thing, I have a bee in my bonnet about, again, how penalties are applied. And I feel they've been quite inconsistent with penalties. And we can talk about it a bit later when we talk about Lance and Charles.
Yeah.
But so for Mercedes, I think a weird one. They are just so far ahead of everybody else still, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm not worried for their championship or anything. No. It's just been one of those races that Netflix comes and ruins for them. So I guess
again
they'll pick up the pieces and move on to Germany.
Yeah.
Okay, Beth, F1. We have a troll, Elliot. Let's talk about Red Bull next, given that we have very brave people in the comments saying it took me 5 times to pass my driving test, but I'm now convinced I can drive Red Bull faster than Albano. Okay, Beth. Now,
I feel like there's a personal attack here.
I do think this is a targeted comment. I
would say so.
Well, Beth, you know what? I will be the first one to admit that this
wasn't the best weekend.
It's been a difficult weekend for Alex Albon, and it happens, Beth. It happens.
Yeah.
Max had 2 retirements the previous 2 races, and you don't see us, going off at the Max fans and telling everybody what a bad driver he is.
That's because there's so many of them, we wouldn't be able to fight them off.
That's true, but beside the point. Look, it wasn't a great weekend for Alex. Qualifying was quite depressing. I'm not going to lie. I was hoping for slightly better.
I have the qualifying up here. What was it? A second difference?
1.2 seconds. So there were a couple of extenuating circumstances. Let me go and start with my Alex Albon excuses for the week. So Max Verstappen got the tow, which I think won him about a third of a second, people estimate, which is okay. So we've accounted for 0.9 out of the 1.2 seconds. Now the other 0.9 seconds, you know what? I think it was probably the wind. It was probably the wind. The wind changed direction, and Alex had a higher downforce setup than Max. Therefore, yes. Therefore, I think just the wind direction affected Alex much more than it affected Max, and that's the 0.9 seconds. So I think, Elliot, we can conclude based off
Max had headwind into every corner. Alex had tailwind.
Expert analysis that Alex was actually as good as Max during this weekend.
I think so.
Especially in qualifying where it was most apparent. No, I'm kidding. No, this wasn't the weekend that he would have wanted. Qualifying was pretty poor. And the race, I don't get why I got a gearbox penalty. Like, do we know why?
I don't know. Probably fitting in new gearbox if I had to make an assumption.
But I didn't even know he had gearbox troubles. Maybe the gearbox was the reason there was such a big difference between him and Max.
He's actually missing 2 gears.
Exactly. He was basically doing his lap in fourth throughout. He couldn't shift up or down. But he's again, like, his pace on the mediums at the end of the race was really, really good compared to Max. But it doesn't matter at that point because he was really struggling at the beginning. Couldn't get past George Russell, then couldn't get past
No.
Nando. He got past him eventually, but it just took really long. And even he said at the end of the race, like he was struggling, like especially on the hard sides, he was really, really slow. Do you know what, Elliot? We win some, we lose some. As I've been saying this whole weekend, it's been a hard one for me. All of my favorites have been on the struggle bus.
Marcus Armstrong. Espen had an all right race. Oh, 7.
Sorry?
Actually. I thought Esteban had an all right race, but no, he finished.
He
7.
did have an all right race. We can talk about Esteban just now, but yeah, it's been tough with Alex. I hope all we can do, I guess, is hope it goes better next race. I'm sure it will go better. It's just one of those races. It happens, hopefully. Yeah. Alrighty, Max. Max pulled out a really good lap.
Stellar race.
Really good race, really good qualifying. This is one of his best weekends, I think, so far.
I think it's probably his best qualifying performance so far.
I agree.
Even though he's had pole positions.
I agree from what I've seen. Like, I was thinking when we were in Q2, it was going to be incredibly close between Max and Daniel for P3. And then Max went and pulled, I don't know how many tenths out of a hat and overtook Bottas in the process as well, which is actually quite insane. So I'll admit I'm not the biggest Max fan. I don't know, he just grinds my gears. But I do appreciate watching the really good drivers doing really cool things. And I thought that was one of those like really awesome moments where nobody expected that lap, and all of a sudden he just comes in and pulls something out of the bag. So I like that. In the race, he did what he could. He was, I think, slower than Valtteri and Lewis in the first stint. Yeah,
he couldn't really do much in the race. There was no one for him to race.
Exactly. So Valtteri was too far ahead, and then the Renaults got tripped up by Ferrari. So I think it would have been interesting to see if Ricciardo could have maybe done something, I don't know, in between there. But then also Hamilton was between the Renaults and Verstappen. So actually, no, it was just one of those things. Not really a lot of action for Max, but I guess if you're a driver, you prefer that. No reason for incident.
Yeah, it's like, I think it was Karun or Johnny who said it after the race, that it's like the Alain Prost approach for Max, where it's like, if the car's good enough for second, you need to get second. If it's good enough for first, you need to get first. That's pretty much what Max has been doing. And we saw that back at the 70th anniversary, where he got the win, and he sort of ignored what the team was saying. He's like, I know I can get the win today, so I'll just go off. And we even heard him say that today, where he's like, I just need to drive my own race, stop telling me about what people around me are doing.
I like how aware he is in the race. Like, I feel this has been one of his big improvements. He's actually quite, I don't know, circumspect during the race. He doesn't get really emotional, or like you can still hear like he gets upset, but he's very sort of, I don't know, calm.
He can just like, check it off. Just be like, okay, fine, boom.
Yeah. And I also, just a quick aside, I sort of appreciated Hamilton today telling his race engineer, you know what, just shut up, stop giving me information, let me just drive. I like that. I don't know, I like drivers just try to get their head down and do their job. So that was cool. With regard to Red Bull, I actually don't know what to make of them. I thought they were going to be slower, or Max. I thought Max was going to be slower.
Watching practice was painful. Watching practice was actually very painful.
I thought Max was going to be slower. I thought Alex was going to be faster. So I guess on average, they were just as we expected.
Yeah, probably.
Cool. All right, let's talk about the midfield. Now, let's talk about Racing Point, Renault, and McLaren, because they had very much contrasting fortunes. Let's start with Racing Point, because our boy Sergio Perez coming back and putting a big middle finger right up in front of Otmar Savnau's face, out qualifying Stroll by a massive amount in the worst car, and then bringing that car home in fourth as a really, really big, what are you going to do about it move to Racing Point. I thought Perez probably was the driver of the day, even though we didn't see him do anything. He had a great overtake on Ricciardo.
Oh, yeah, that was an amazing move. Anything around turn 3 is pretty decent.
Yeah, so that was really, really good stuff. And then Perez had excellent race pace as well, was faster than the Renaults, faster than the Ferraris by a long shot. Yeah, I'd probably give him the driver of the day, just in terms of overall race performance.
Yeah, I didn't really know who to give driver of the day to today. I didn't vote on it because I was just like, no.
There wasn't like one standout performance, I thought, but that's why I thought Max, Lewis, and Valtteri did what they were supposed to, given the circumstances.
Yeah,
Perez, the fact that he was able to get, because he was behind both Renaults at one point, so he got past both of the Renaults.
Yeah, probably helped by Seb.
Yes, helped by Seb, definitely, but was way up the road. Like Ricciardo didn't have a dream of catching him by the time he got past. So I thought that was a really good job by Perez. Now his teammate Lance Stroll obviously had a bit of a mishap in qualifying with the red flag, and then he couldn't do his proper lap. But it's not like he was really putting in electrically fast performances before that. I think Perez was the faster driver throughout. So, yes, he got unlucky with qualifying, but I wasn't, affronted on his behalf.
No, I mean, I think the Lance issue is not the Lance issue, the incident is quite bad for him, because I think there should have been a penalty there, because the same thing happened at Japan last year with Charles and Max. If you remember, where Charles ran wide, took out Max, but Charles got a penalty that year.
Yeah. And I mean, we've seen a couple of incidents, and yeah, me too. Actually, I was ready.
We say that.
I was ready with my Twitter fingers just when I saw the incident, going to type something shady about Lance Stroll and his incompetence. But then, obviously, looking at the replay, I fully agree with you, Elliot. There were so many incidents so far this year where the driver got a penalty. Think Hamilton and Albon, where in Austria, Hamilton got a 5-second penalty for something similar. Understeered into Albon on cold tires just after the safety car restart. Similar situation. Albon with Kevin Magnussen, Silverstone. Similar story. Albon got a penalty, tried his luck down the inside. Magnussen left the space. Albon understeered into Magnussen. Magnussen spun off. Exactly the same incident, 5-second penalty for Alex Albon.
Yeah.
So I'm really having a tough time trying to understand how that wasn't even investigated. Never mind.
Also, if you think back to Spain as well, Charles didn't get investigated at all for not driving seatbelts.
I was proper upset about that, actually. I was going on about that on Twitter for like 2 weeks after that incident. So nobody even said anything. It was like it didn't happen. And even, I remember like the journalists tried to ask about it, and they just sort of were batted away. Nobody really cared. And it's just weird. Like, and again, I'm not one for conspiracy theory, so it's probably not like something shady happening. But it does open up a question about consistency in how you apply the rules, because typically, and Johnny Herbert explained it quite nicely earlier in the weekend. You always look at previous races, similar incidents, to try and establish some sort of precedence, to figure out, okay, in other situations, what did they do? What was the same? What was different? Are there any extenuating circumstances? And I really didn't see any extenuating circumstances here, other than, it's the opening lap, so it's relatively chaotic. But it's not like Charles was in combat with any other driver, or whether there was any other driver in that whole situation.
Yeah, and Lance left him as much space as he could. There wasn't anywhere else for Lance.
He literally drove around the apex to give Charles that space, and he really, did he get a penalty for ripping Seb's rear wing off in stereo? No, he didn't. Well, you're right. I think it's because they're both retired, so there was no point. But no, he didn't get a penalty. And again, it was probably on the opening lap, so they keep saying, no, it's an opening lap incident, so they're not
racing incident. But if anything, arguably the Aitken-Giotto incident was more of a racing incident than that one.
Yeah, 100% more of a racing incident, because at least there, both drivers are on the limit.
Yeah, Jack was on the marbles, went off,
Yeah, no, so I was pretty upset about that penalty situation, but again, not much we can do now.
No.
So Lance Stroll out, not a great result for him.
And then
McLaren, I'm a big Carlos Sainz fan. Like, I think he's an excellent driver. And that was a really bad mistake. But he also admitted
it was a rookie mistake.
It was a rookie mistake. That was just, he tried to go through that section as fast as possible and misjudged his speed and took off his left front.
Also, though, I have to think that the way they have that set out, the drivers have to come through it at such a sharp angle. It's quite dangerous if you go off.
Yeah, so that was the thing. So that's why Grosjean just drove straight through the bollard later on. Again, Grosjean driving for change, trying to at least give us a bit of excitement. We had a virtual safety car
because of it
for 10 seconds, but alas, wasn't enough to make anything interesting happen. But I agree with you, actually. I think it was always going to happen something with the bollards, because Carlos sort of got out of the apex of the corner, or not the apex of the corner, but got out of the corner quite late on, where he sort of decided, oh, okay, actually I might have, overshot. Let me drive through the bollards. And then, yes, he came in at a really sharp angle and tried to just sort of weave through the bollards, but the angle at which he came in at didn't allow him to do it.
And then ultimately messed up his teammate's race because of it, and almost took out Seb.
And Lando was literally stuck behind his wreckage. So that's why Lando was so far behind after the first lap as well, because Lando and Albon got stuck behind the wreckage that was Carlos Sainz's car. So, pretty bad weekend for McLaren at the end of the day, because then Lando was also, on the struggle bus after that. Like, Lando had no pace in the race. I don't know what was happening.
Yeah, I don't know. It seemed like he had pace when the safety car first ended, and it was like George, Alex, and Lando. But then after that, just
Alex disappeared off into the distance, and Lando was just sort of stuck there, trying to.
I think he went like 8th to 18th, then not back up to 9th, down to 15th.
Yeah, so I think also people overestimated, all the teams overestimated how long they could go on tires, because Alex also pitted again for mediums, but Lando, I think they kept him out too long, because Lando was still trying to somehow make a point happen a couple of laps before the end when both Gasly and Albon overtook him. And then he was a sitting duck. Then he came into the pits. Yeah. But I don't really think he was ever going to make that one stop happen. That many laps on the hard tires.
Maybe back in like 2014, but...
Yeah. So, not a great weekend for McLaren. 0 points.
Your favourite Renault, I'm guessing, is who we're talking about next.
Yes. Now, I will start with my defense of Ocon, because
it's fine. I think he did good this weekend.
He did good this weekend. Thank you. He really, he was running P3 or not P3, P4 for a while. First stint from Ocon was really, really strong. And the only reason they pitted Ricciardo first was because he was running out of his soft tires and he was at risk of an undercut from Perez, which Perez then did.
Yeah.
Oh, no, wait. No, Perez overtook him on the track. Never mind. But Ocon drove the better opening stint, I think. I think he defended well against Ricciardo initially, was a couple of seconds ahead on the road. Then he had to run longer because Ricciardo had to pit first.
I think the only thing that you can really take away from him is when he wasn't able to get past Seb.
Yes. But also, remember, Seb was on the mediums. And I think that at that point, the mediums were still pretty good. We saw with Leclerc as well. Leclerc was also running at a good pace still on the mediums at that stage. And Ocon couldn't get past Sebastian on the hard tires. And then obviously, I think it was about 6 or 7 laps that he tried to get past. And then they did the switcheroo, which at that point, obviously, I think Ricciardo had an easier job compared to Ocon, because Vettel started to go off. In terms of overtaking Vettel, because Vettel was at that point literally just there trying to be a roadblock.
Yeah.
So that Charles can overcut Ocon and Ricciardo. So I do feel bad for Ocon in that sense. I'm glad he played the team game, because I think if he didn't, they would have probably both ended up behind Charles. But luckily, Ricciardo came out ahead of him, so then he could at least bank some good points. Ocon, tried to get, well, at that point, I think his tires were also cooked. So he was sort of just trying to maintain the gap to Charles. And then where I do want to give him credit is he literally had Daniel Kvyat less than a second away from him for like 15 to 20 laps. I'm not sure for how long. It basically, at the point that Daniel Kvyat pitted, he was about a second behind Ocon. And Esteban Ocon did not let Daniel Kvyat on his medium tires by, which I think was quite a good achievement.
Yeah, I think Esteban did quite good, and I think Daniel as well put in a very strong performance. You couldn't really have asked for much more, because I think the race pace of the Racing Point was a lot better than the Renault.
Yeah,
but I think sort of Daniel and Esteban's weekends sort of like, you can't say too much because they were just like average to slightly above average. They didn't do anything spectacular apart from Daniel's qualifying.
I hope Daniel qualified a bit higher up. Like, I think he bottled his Q3 lap slightly. I'm not gonna lie. He was faster in Q2 than in Q3.
Yeah, he was. What was he?
I think he would have been ahead of Perez if he did his Q2 qualifying.
Yeah, he would have. Yeah.
So that's the only place where I was slightly disappointed. I think he left. Well, he showed us that he left a couple of tenths on the table. But other than that, Renault has been the best midfield team over the last couple of races.
Yeah, they have. I think arguably Renault have the fastest car, but the drivers just don't put it together on the weekends. Because I think McLaren.
I think Racing Point has the best car. I think Renault has a better driver pairing, and McLaren has a better driver pairing. I feel Racing Point has been underperforming relative to Renault and McLaren, and McLaren and Renault's drivers have been making the difference, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say like arguably McLaren have the worst car out of the three.
Yeah,
but they are first. They're first in the out of the midfield teams in the championship. They're third,
but they're also less peaky. I think the McLaren car at least works relatively well everywhere.
Yeah,
where the Renault car seems like some races it works really well, and other races it really doesn't work.
Low and medium speed tracks. Renault seem to do really well, and they have their engine's really good.
Yes,
that Renault engine is like.
I'm glad somebody else is saying this, because Renault's engine is probably like the most underappreciated thing.
Makes it hate the noise it makes though. Hate the noise it makes. Sounds like a lightsaber.
Okay, didn't know engine noises offend you so much, but anyway, we move on.
It's so squeaky, isn't it?
I like it. It's like a turbo whistle. That's what you just hear the turbo whistling in the Renault engine. To me, the worst sounding engine is the Ferrari engine.
Oh, really? I think the Honda one sounds quite bad.
No, the Ferrari engine, it just sounds like a disappointment. Everything about that Ferrari engine is disappointing, including the sound in my head. Like, it's really bad.
Yeah.
In any case, let's talk about Ferrari now that we're talking about their engine. I'm very sorry. People are singing the praises of Leclerc, but to me, he did fine. Like, he did okay. Like, he didn't do anything spectacular.
Seb couldn't get past an Alfa Romeo for like the whole way.
No, but Seb was playing rolling roadblock so that Charles could get in front of the Renaults.
He did play the team game massively this race.
Seb's medium tire stint was 5 or 6 laps too long, and he lost so much time.
The defensive work we saw from Seb against Daniel and Esteban.
Yeah, really, really good job from Seb in that respect, and he definitely played the team game. But I think that obviously got Charles ahead of Ocon.
Yeah.
So thank you, Seb, for that. Charles didn't get a penalty for his Stroll incident. I've already given my thoughts on that. Charles didn't get any damage. I don't know how he managed to get away from that situation unscathed with Stroll.
Oh, in Stroll. I thought you were talking about the qualifying one.
No. I'm still talking about the race. We're talking about qualifying now. But so in my mind, Charles did fine. He did a good job to get 6th. Probably you should have finished behind Ocon and Gasly had everything played out in the way that he should have, or if Sebastian didn't do such a good job defensively, I think on merit Charles would have probably finished 8th. So a 6th is obviously a win for the team. So I think, can you believe it, Elliot? Ferrari made a good strategic choice.
Oh, I'm quite surprised, honestly.
Are you? I'm shocked beyond belief.
I know.
I can't believe it. Now, let's quickly, before we move on, talk about Seb's little accident in qualifying.
Yep.
And I don't know, tell me your thoughts about it first.
The thing is, it almost... I've watched it a fair few times, and it actually looks like he goes around before he... Like, the car starts spinning before he hits the curb, and then the curb exacerbates it. Because I've watched it like 5 or 6 times, and all the commentators were saying, "Oh, look, he hits the curb and then goes round." But I'm like, I don't feel like he did. I feel like he started to go around and then front tire clipped the curb, and yeah. So I don't know.
Well, that's what he also said. What happened? He said he was trying to catch the car. He was literally having an oversteer moment on corner entry. And then he clipped the curb, and then obviously we know what happened after that. So I agree with you. It was probably the car giving him trouble over and above his mistake. But I was pretty depressed when I saw it, just because it felt like it's the first weekend where Seb looked to be relatively on top of the car, and he was, sort of matching Charles in terms of lap time, and it was going better. And then he had a crash in Q2, and it just ruined all of his momentum.
I know. I think it did. I think he's just like very checked out of the team, though, isn't he? That's the sort of what I see from him, is that I think he's very much, obviously he's very aware that the team's not around him. He's not going to be there next year. He's going on to a better team, and I know. I just think that when you're sort of in that rut, it's probably hard to get out of it.
Yeah.
End up doing.
It's actually weird. Like I've thought to myself mentally, how would I react to the whole situation? Because obviously, and the reason for this is because, as I said earlier, all of my favorite drivers are going through what we call a bit of a slump.
Yeah, I mean, Seb's like my second favorite driver on the grid, because so
you're experiencing similar emotions.
Yeah, I am, because I used to be a little Red Bull fan, because born in Scotland, and I started watching F1. DC was in Red Bull, so I was like, I'm going to support the Scottish guy. So now look where it's gone.
But anyways, so what I was getting at is, it's interesting to me, sort of the mentality of how you get yourself out of that slump.
Yeah.
As a driver, because especially if sort of the results just get compounded again and again and again, and every weekend is a bit of a struggle. Like, how do you get yourself motivated, and where do you get the confidence from?
Lewis does it quite well. Lewis always bounces back. He has a good bounce back.
Yeah, but also he doesn't bounce back that often, because he's riding, like, okay, he has to bounce back next weekend. But he still got pole position by half a second, and came third despite a 10-second penalty.
Yeah.
So, like, I think it's easier for somebody like Lewis to pick out the positives compared to, somebody like Vettel, who every race is just.
Is Seb's positive that he didn't spin on a weekend? Is that what he's taken away as a positive?
Literally, at this point,
he didn't have to dictate the strategy to the team.
Yes, I mean, he picked up his front wing at least, which is nice of him. But bounce back ability, yes. So it's an interesting one to me. If I'm Sebastian, I just want to get this year over and done with and go to Racing Point and have the best time with Lance.
I wouldn't be surprised if his performance is still sort of keep teetering down more and more. Then I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Wehrlein in that car for a couple of races.
Imagine the scenes. Pascal Wehrlein, another one of my heartbreakers. I loved Pascal Wehrlein. I thought he was a really good driver. I didn't like Ocon initially, because I felt like he ruined Wehrlein's career. Which is ironic. But anyways, let's quickly talk about our little back markers, our favorite back markers bringing up the rear. So AlphaTauri, not much I want to say about them, to be honest. I think they Gasly did fine. Kvyat had quite a good race in his defense. I thought he did
Kvyat qualified 12th, finished 8th.
Yeah, obviously, the 11th and 12th starting positions are quite nice, especially in a midfield this tight, because he gives you that tire benefit. So that's what Leclerc also had with the
mediums.
With the mediums, and then Kvyat did the same thing on the hards. So, I mean, obviously strategically it worked out well for them, but all in all, a really good drive by Kvyat.
And
Gasly, I mean,
I feel like he's had a bit of a fall from grace since Monza.
Look at them. Look at Toro Rosso. Sorry, look at AlphaTauri trying, a virtual safety car trick. But imagine the scenes if you try and put on medium tires and it's virtual safety car time, and you are still in the pit lane on your way to your pit stop, and they cancel the virtual safety car. The dread.
Yeah, I know. The thing is, though, when you're in the midfield teams, you need to take those risks,
to take the chance.
Which we know Red Bull have always done. Red Bull have always been ambitious with their strategy.
Yeah.
Races that come to mind, like 2018, China, and that. Obviously, Red Bull and AlphaTauri are different teams, but I think they have the same sort of mentality.
Let's take the punt and see what happens. Yeah. If it doesn't pay off, then you know what, we lost out on 1 point. If it pays off, we might score 5 or 6 points.
Yeah, and look, they've got 2 race wins from it.
True. Alrighty, let's talk about it. Let's talk about Haas now.
Just getting ready to go in on Romain Grosjean.
Get ready. No, you can't. This is exactly why I want to talk about Haas, because I feel this has been a watershed weekend for Haas. I mean, they didn't score any points. They didn't really qualify that well. But I do think both Grosjean and Magnussen actually drove really good races up until the point Grosjean yeeted through the bollards.
Grosjean finished 17th. The only person he finished in front. Grosjean finished behind a Williams. That's not having a good race.
He had a good start.
What change was he driving for now? Yeah, good start.
He tried. I mean, he drove through the bollards. He got a virtual safety car up and running for 4 seconds.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I think Grosjean just needs to go, doesn't he?
Yeah, look, there was no change in my opinion in terms of who should drive for Haas next year.
Yeah.
Grosjean must definitely still go. I just wanted to give him, and Magnussen drove pretty well. I mean,
Grosjean had the better qualifying. Grosjean's actually doing a lot better at qualifying this year than Magnussen.
But that's his strength, though. Grosjean's strength is qualifying usually. Yeah. Do you have the results open in front of you?
I do.
Where did Magnussen finish?
So Magnussen finished 12th. So Magnussen did actually have a good weekend.
I thought that's a really good job for Kevin Magnussen. Who did he finish ahead of? Norris?
Kimi, Lando, Latifi, Grosjean, Russell.
I think that's a great effort by Kevin Magnussen. So good job, Kevin Magnussen. Yeah. Maybe you won't lose your seat next year. Let's see. Let's talk about the back markers now. Alfa Romeo and Williams. Let's go through these quickly because I really don't have that much to say in terms of Giovinazzi. I'm sorry, but no. Giovinazzi has to go.
I mean, he's finished ahead of Kimi at every race. Though.
But I think Kimi drove the better race, to be quite honest.
No, I do. I think Gio does have to go. I think he does have to go, yeah. I'm complete. I think I would rather Kimi stay because Kimi has the knowledge and I feel like he puts in more consistent performances.
Kimi literally held up so many people today by just being incredibly annoyingly good in defense. Albon couldn't get past him for so long. Gasly couldn't get past him for ages. Vettel couldn't get past him. Kimi was just refused. He refused to make room and to give up. And I thought that was a good race performance.
Yeah, I feel like if Antonio has momentum, he can get through the field though. I feel like there's something there. He's not a terrible driver. I just don't think he's...
No, he's not. But he's just so inconsistent. And my opinion is this is now his second year in F1. You only have so many chances. I would argue 2 years is sufficient chance.
2 years, get a fair crack of the whip.
Yeah, which is why, again, and how horrible it may sound.
I'll qualify Kimi by 0.4 seconds. Yeah.
Oh, wow, didn't know that. Okay, well, good, Giovinazzi. Good job.
Yeah.
Sorry about
your qualified last as well.
Interesting. But the Alfa Romeo
is a dogging. It's so bad in qualifying.
Yeah. Let's talk about Williams. Lastly, George Russell, props again for a great qualifying effort.
Good qualifying. Messed up his own race though.
He locked up when defending from Norris and Albon.
Terrible on the restart.
the turbo on the restart. And I'm going to be honest, like, I get why Russell wanted to defend. But if I was George Russell, I would have just let Lando and Albon through because they were going to get past eventually.
Take the DRS for a couple laps, probably.
Yes, I think he should have been more circumspect there. Yes, obviously you do want to put up a good fight and race with the faster cars, but I think he just ruined his tires with that lockup. Then he was on the brand new hard tires, had a massive flat spot, tried to go around for a couple of laps, had to come in and pit. So then immediately his race was ruined.
Yeah, I feel like that. I love and hate turn 13 on that track so much. Like it's one of the only decent.
It's the only interesting corner, I feel. Yeah. Like it's the one that I always like. I'm excited to see what drivers do when they brake for the corner.
Yeah, I feel like Carlos is probably the best driver on the grid around that corner because he takes the really wide line. Yeah, he opens it up so much, and I think Lando is doing the same as well because obviously Lando's probably seeing the data of what that does.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting point. And I agree, turn 13 is the only good corner on the Sochi race circuit. Maybe turn 2, just because it causes incidents. Other than that, it's a dumb corner. Like I hate that.
It almost like comes back on itself.
Yeah, it's the one that caused all of the Formula 2 drama as well. Like it just causes crashes because it has this wide entry and then it just narrows into like the second phase of the corner, and then you just have accidents and people get pincered. But anyways, Nicholas Latifi,
I think he did all right. Like he can't do much more. Like you can't do much more with that car, can you?
No, he did an anonymous race. I thought his race was like pretty standard.
He's
qualifying. He needs to fix qualifying because he's way behind Russell over one lap.
Yeah.
Now, I would have accepted it if he wasn't as far behind as what Kubica was last year, because we all know Kubica had limitations to his driving. And the fact that Latifi is as far behind worries me because that shows that he's probably not the fastest over one lap anyways.
I think we all know, obviously we know Nick's in that seat because he has the money. So, but ultimately he's putting in better race performances than George. Like,
I do think he's been more consistent than George. I thought George was obviously better in Mugello last week, but George is I don't know, like, I think it's actually a good thing that George has this year at Williams because I think he has a couple of things to sort out in terms of how he manages his race. Restarts
and restarts. But obviously, I feel like when he goes to Merc, because I think it'll probably be next year, that Lewis if Lewis stays after next year, or if he even stays after this year, I don't know. But I think Lewis will be in for a shock when he has someone good at qualifying again next to him.
Yeah, I mean, it was hectic when it was Rosberg versus Lewis in qualifying, like really stressful. Like, I remember watching and I was like, I don't know who's going to get pole. You'd back Lewis still, but so often Rosberg caught him by surprise and actually out-qualified him. So it would actually be nice if you have somebody like Rosberg next to him again that can challenge him a bit. But anyways, that's all of our teams that we've discussed. Have you missed one? I don't think we have.
No, we haven't. No.
Everybody. So let's then move on to Elliot, to the gold crown of Formula One Awards, which is, of course, the TF1 Show Awards that we hand out after every race weekend. And our first one is the Pastor Maldonado Award for Most Dunderheaded Deed. So, Elliot, who would you nominate?
Carlos.
For the award?
Carlos. It was pretty Maldonado. Like, drive into a wall.
I want to disagree, but I can't. I think it's a slam dunk. Carlos, I'm sorry.
I think the other person you can maybe justify giving it to is George for that massive lockup, but
also, like, so many drivers have locked up in that corner. So I feel that's a more excusable incident compared to Carlos that just literally
and almost took out Seb and ruined his teammate's race.
Yes. So Carlos Sainz, congratulations. You win the Pastor Maldonado Award for Most Dunderheaded Deed. Righty, so the next one is the Lewis Hamilton #Blessed Award for Luckiest Driver.
Driver, I think Bottas. He got gifted the win, I would say.
To an extent, I agree. I'm going to go with Charles.
I was going to say Charles is the other one you could.
I think Charles got away with bloody murder when he didn't even get investigated for a penalty there.
Yeah, I'm not thinking about that. Yeah, I'd change Charles.
Yeah, so Charles, congratulations. You're another award winner. Next one is the Nico Hulkenberg Podium Award for unluckiest driver. Who do you reckon?
Lando.
Why? Support your answer for 10 marks.
So, I think, obviously, he had decent qualifying, then got mugged off because of what Carlos did. Then he made up the places, and the team, wanting to extend the stint, then led him to finish further back. Or, I would say Alex. Because obviously he got put on the hards and for so long.
And the gearbox penalty also.
And the penalty. And the race penalty.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm going to go with... I had someone in my mind and now I can't... Alright, I'm going to go with Stroll.
Oh, yeah.
I think Stroll did a really good job to get up to, what was he running in? P7? And he started P13 or
14?
14.
13. No, 13.
Yeah, he started P13, made up so many positions in a couple of corners, was running ahead of Charles, and then got punted off through no fault of his own.
Yeah.
So I think Lance Stroll deserves that one, in my mind.
No, I can see that.
Great. Okay, well that's
the classic Lance Stroll thing of making up places on the first lap.
I want to give Lance Stroll props because, again, I've been a very vocal critic of his over the last couple of years on this podcast. But
I think the last few years, like, you could be vocal against him. I think now he's actually putting in the performances to justify.
He's doing well. Qualifying was a bit of a mess yesterday, but his race performance, especially in opening laps, is actually really impressive. Like, I would give Lance Stroll credit for that because he did a really good job.
Yeah, I don't really know who... Like, I think you could justify keeping Lance in that seat instead of Sergio, even if it wasn't Lawrence's son. He's just going to set off the Perez stands there.
Like, I was really angry when they just chucked Perez after everything that he's done.
I can definitely understand why.
And and also the way they framed it, and they're still doing this. They're like, "Oh no, but Lance is ahead in the championship."
Not anymore.
I'm like, he got one podium at Monza, which he should have won that race technically, but he got third, got the points,
yeah.
And now they're like, "Oh, Lance Stroll, our Lord and Savior, he should get all of the upgrades because he's ahead of Sergio in the championship." Sergio has still been the better driver, I feel. If you put the two of them together through the course of the season, Sergio has been the faster driver. And taking the whole parent nepotism situation out of the window, if I was a race principal having to choose between Perez and Lance, I'm choosing Perez every single time.
Really?
If you were, let's say you were Toto Wolff and you had to choose for your team, you had to choose who you're going to put in Mercedes, Lance Stroll or Sergio Perez, who are you going to choose? And those are the two.
Are we talking just for a single season or a long-term project?
No, single season.
Single season. Okay, single season I pick Perez, but I think for a longer-term project I'd pick Lance. Because,
really?
Well, he's
Perez
still
is
like 20. Yeah, but Lance is 22, 23. He's the second youngest driver on the grid. Like, he has so much longevity that you can get out of him.
But what's his max potential, do you think? Like, I think if you have Perez for 5 years in that car, he can get a lot of good results.
I would say, so Lance max potential is probably like Perez level, Hulkenberg level. Like, consistently best of the rest.
I will accept that. Okay, I accept that.
He didn't have a bad junior career. Like,
he did well in Formula 3.
Right? Won Formula 3, won Florida Winter Series, Toyota Racing Cup, I think.
Fair enough.
New Zealand Grand Prix.
I'll admit I've been harsh on Stroll, and he has done well. I just didn't like how that whole situation was handled because...
No, that's understandable.
Like, it was just a whole way
the team got acquired through Sergio.
Yeah.
Him having been there for, 5 years now? Yeah, 5 years.
Yeah, exactly. Or longer. No, it wasn't 7 years that he's been with the team. Something like ridiculous amount.
Yeah, it's quite long.
But anyways, I guess that's the way the cookie crumbles. And like Sergio Perez's career at Racing Point, this episode is also now upon its end. Yes. So we will obviously be back with a race review of the German Grand Prix, which will be in 2 weeks' time. Or it's not called the German Grand Prix. It's called the Eiffel Grand Prix.
So I remember when I saw that I remember looking at it like a couple of weeks ago. I was like, we're not racing in France this year.
Slightly confusing name, but anyways, we'll give them parts for that. But Elliot, I want to thank you for taking the time and joining the show. It's always such great fun chatting to you. You always have really, really good insights.
Thank you so much for joining. It was a really fun time.
It was.
I'm off to live in my university room. I'm not even off. I'm just going to be living here for the next 9 days.
Living your best life. I do want to commend us, Elliot. We got 55 minutes of content out of that race, which I think in itself is quite an achievement.
It's commendable. Pretty good.
That's what I would say as well. Just to reiterate what I said at the beginning of the episode, everybody, please go and support Elliot's channel. His content links are below in the description. So go give him all of the love because he deserves it, because quite frankly, he's stuck in his university room and nobody else is going to give him any love. So please go and support Elliot.
Just this guy here that's going to be doing it.
So please go and support Elliot. And also, please, if you enjoyed this episode or if you enjoy my other episodes, go and hit the subscribe button here as well. I'd really appreciate it. And leave a lovely little comment of, maybe giving your thoughts of what you thought the race was and whether you think Hamilton should have gotten his penalties, whether you think Charles should have gotten his penalties. Let us know in the comments below. And then we'll be back next week with another episode. Bye, everybody.
Bye.